Hi, everyone, and welcome to fan commentary on Operation Lightspeed, the pilot episode from Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. Thanks to the success from Lost Galaxy, they had a blueprint to follow from this moving forward. They figured out how could you continue doing Power Rangers after a reboot, and the best way to do it is of course keep changing the cast because it gives a new fresh take. What I love about the Lost Galaxy Lightspeed and Time Force run of the series is they actually spent the extra money setting up initial things like here. We see this Egyptian-esque, background of where the origins of the demons come in because this stuff didn't happen in the Go-Go 5 material, so this had to be created by us. This is really great. It shows high production values and it shows that they really cared about background to the demons instead of just simply making them appear as like they did with the Go-Go 5 footage. So there is some criticisms toward the Lightspeed Rescue series, but overall I enjoy the series very much. Now the cool thing is they actually have some foreshadowing built into this layer. If you pay attention, the room is lined by a lot of snakes. There is a little bit of a plot hole issue with the first episode. The main thing is, okay, Captain Mitchell has heard the history of the demons and he knows that they're real. And of course, this was probably passed down over several generations. The thing is, no one knew where this place was. That's what always bugged me. It's just like, how did this place get lost over the centuries, yet people could still remember the tales of the demons? It's a little convenient toward the story because if they knew where it was, then they would simply have the place protected and never deal with them rising again. I've always said this is my favorite season out of the majority of PR because it did a lot of things that other seasons really don't do. And it was also the first season to feature a rescue, type of, characters. While, superheroes always save the day, but we didn't actually use elements of, real life heroes and incorporate into the PR universe what feels like a operation that could potentially be done in real life. For the most part, the pilot for Lightspeed Rescue is different from the actual pilot episode in GoGo 5. In fact, it's actually used as episode two's footage. Somehow, most of the time when they make a single pilot episodes, they always feel rushed. But Lightspeed Rescues, except for some couple of odd moments where they have to explain certain things, it was pretty much flawless. It hit all the beats, it hits all the mystery, it shows the command structure, who Captain Mitchell is, all the Rangers, all their quirks, all in really good 20 minutes. And I love personally love the production values of Lightspeed Rescue. They take a lot of the existing elements that they've done in the past. If you pay attention to a lot of the consoles in Lightspeed Rescue, they're reused of the Astro Megaships consoles slash Lost Galaxy Command Center consoles with their own flair. Even though they do reuse a lot of things, it has their own thing where, you can't really tell unless you look really closely. Joel, I would say, is the closest to his Japanese counterpart. They pretty much have the same type of personality. Kind of doesn't really think of authority as important, loves to goof off, very close to each other. Their names are very similar too, Shoal and Joel. It's a little weird that they kind of just abduct them out of nowhere, especially when you realize later on that the Rangers don't have like a secret identity. Although I always wondered, like, how did Captain Mitchell pick these people? Obviously, he's looked through probably thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of applicants that he's just simply rummaged around, seeing their, capabilities, tactics, any type of special, abilities that they can do and deal with. Kelsey is very different from Gogo Yellow in Gogo 5. In Gogo 5, the character was a cop, while she's just an adventurer. She loves to rock climb. So she can pretty much do almost anything if she puts her head to it. She's kind of like the fit into any type of story point, which helps when you have to deal with the Japanese footage. Chad is backstory of being a person who loves sea fish, loves to swim. That's also very different from his Japanese counterpart. In Gogo 5, most of the characters have particular rescue jobs, and that's their specialties. While in Lightspeed, I would argue only three of them are close to their Japanese counterparts in their job position. And this is our introduction to Carter. If you pay attention, the building that they're filming in is actually a training ground for firefighters. It's not actually a normal house. I get why they did it this way because you really can't burn down a real house. They have unless you want to do it with heavy visual effects, which they unfortunately can't afford to do that on this type of show. So they had to work in the training grounds. So if you ever pay attention, it doesn't look like any type of house you'd ever live in. Although they are doing it for real, these stunt performers, they are doing it for real with very little work in effects. Why I like this season so much is because it grounded PR. It still has the fantastical elements like demons, magic, the ranger suits and all this other stuff. But it incorporated the real life, situations that, people deal with. Disasters, paramedics, all these type of things. So it felt more real. Like these characters could actually happen and, be believable. For a kid show, it's welcome because a lot of times with kid shows, they tend not to want to show some of the grittier nature. I think I also love the mystery around the captain and all the characters from the beginning. I think my favorite character was Joel. I always liked how he was snarky and a little bit of obnoxious. Oh, and there's been a running gag in Japan. If you pay attention, you can actually see Mandora's little glowy ball thing right there on the right side. That's underneath her telescope, which has been reused in tons of seasons. It's in One Tiger and Die Ranger on the back part of the wall, and in a few other seasons I can't remember. I think it's also in Car Ranger. It's a common thing throughout the '90s Sentai seasons. For the most part, the monsters in Lightspeed are close to their Japanese counterparts. They have similar ideas. Queen Banchiri is not here. They have to protect Olympus, baby Olympus. I did love the Lightspeed Aqua base was underwater, and they integrated that in a cool way of why they did it. I think the Aqua base is like the best model that PR has ever done. I love Terra Venture, but you can see that when they filmed it, it wasn't amazing. While with Lightspeed Rescue, they actually hired Stargate Films, no relation to the movie or the TV series. That company actually has done many things since. Walking Dead, Doctor Who, but they've built the Aqua base model. Now, the model is filmed actually on a studio set with low blue lighting and in fog. That's what gives it depth, and that's what makes it look like underwater. I love the base because if you look at it, it kind of looks like a head of a fish, like they're inside a fish, because you can see on the right side over there, it looks like a giant eyeball with a screen, and it has all these the windows that kind of have shape, kind of curved as a fish. In a way, it almost you might think of Divatox's submarine. I always wondered, the fish tank, was it there to give you a little bit of a feeling of Zordon? The thing I always found odd, though, Captain Mitchell is the mentor slash commander of the base. I always wondered why he never decided to make himself a ranger. I mean, yes, he's an older man, and having a younger person would be more preferable. But you think he would have at least maybe tried to become a ranger at some point. I think it was a lost opportunity that he never attempted because he is a firefighter. I think this is actually the only scene that we actually hear Captain Mitchell's first name, William Mitchell. Any other time, he's always referred to as Captain Mitchell. I actually forgot that he had a first name. Now, this backstory for the demon's origin is different from Go-Go 5. Too bad we don't get, any, like, we can get a good look at all the writing inside these, the info on all the characters. It probably just says basic stuff, so that's probably why I didn't want to look at it. I like how everyone plays this scene. The only thing that they're really like weirded out is that they were taken captive. This means that, the PR universe has existed. That's all it really takes. You don't have to make it complicated. Yes, the world is weird, but since, this is roughly 9 years that they've been attacked under so many different circumstances, it's all like, pretty normal to them, unfortunately. Although I wonder, like, did they technically get a break from all this when we saw from Lost Galaxy? Because, maybe they had a year off and there was no monster attacks. I'm honestly surprised they actually showed that footage because at the time, a year later, with Time Force being censored, they actually didn't go back and censor any of the Lightspeed Rescue episodes, which I'm grateful for because, Time Force went into a whole bunch of problems, losing all the original episodes. And I also love this because instead of Captain Mitchell convincing the Rangers, he basically just showed them what's happening in the world. So they made up their decisions. Although you can kind of see Joel isn't perfect, he kind of was forced into it. He really didn't want to say yes. Now the Lightspeed Rescue Morphers are the US version of the toys. They're not the Japanese versions, but they did block out the buttons. If you pay attention over time, you can see the little gray stickers that cover up the buttons starts falling off in certain close-ups. I also found it very odd that he never told his own daughter that she was going to be picked. The Lightspeed jackets, I think they're probably my favorite, outfits that a ranger wears. It's very simple. And of course, our Lightspeed truck, which, originally lived its life on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles TV series before it came over here. And over the years, it was used for a few other things and did come back to being the truck in Wild Force. I always loved this truck because they used it for a lot of things, and it showed like the type of character that Carter was because he doesn't usually like fighting personally. He'd rather use guns and other, things around him to fight. Now, the exit place where the truck comes out of from the aqua base is all a visual effect. It doesn't actually look like that. The water area, the door, that's all in a visual effect. I think what also I loved about the Lightspeed era was that they spent the money to do these type of scenes. They closed off an entire street and to do this first episode to show that scale of like what they have to deal with. A lot of people don't care for Carter as much because he's very stiff, but he's not so stiff in the way where he feels annoying, to me at least. I always enjoyed the character very much. He's the type of leader I always liked out of Rangers. I personally prefer when PR actually shoots its original pilot versus use material from the Japanese pilot. When you do the pilot from the Sentai, they're kind of locked down to what they do, and that usually forces you to end up doing the core of the story from the Sentai side. When you do an original story like here, you're allowed more leeway. The morphing sequence I thought was pretty interesting, although Gogo 5's Henshin was, I think, more cooler looking. But this is like the first time they use heavy visual effects, CG work in the Lightspeed Rescue. Now, people do have problems with the Lightspeed Rescue costumes, including Lost Galaxies from last year. They look like peppermints. I never really have problems with costumes in PR. Even seasons that I hate, like Mega Force. Now, if you pay attention closely, you can actually see that the Rangers are using the toy versions of their blasters and not the actual props. I think the only reason why they do it is because they can't break the actual props. So, because they only have one and they don't want to destroy it because then they have to make a new one, or there's an issue with, breaking it for toy company because they have to return it to them. So they pretty much almost never use the props unless they actually have to. I also like that the weapons actually can transform into a couple of different modes. It was this really cool, grip system. I wish they had done it more often. I think the problem is in Lightspeed Rescue, it was kind of ignored, while in GoGo 5, they actually had the grip system used more often for a lot of the various weapons. The only thing sucks when you bought the toy versions of it, you never got the grips from all five. It was always usually the grip from number one. Even in GoGo 5's toy line, it was kind of a pain in the butt to get the grips from all five of them. They didn't even make all five of them. There was only a couple of them made. I think the best thing about this was the first time the Rangers' secret identities didn't matter. Everyone who they knew they were. And I think it should always be like that because the Rangers are a service to the world. They really shouldn't be hidden like that. But granted, it has some positives because you don't want to know and endanger your family. But I think knowing the Rangers, it just gives you less of a chance of screwing up. I think what current Power Rangers deals with is that everything's very fast, while in the older PR seasons like this one is much slower. It gives us a chance to look out for the characters, which I miss the most because, we have to have some flashy moments, but whenever we deal with the characters, they kind of get glossed over in the pilots, and then if you don't get it like down in the pilot, pretty much they don't really explore the characters later down the line. It's very rare that they do it that way. So I prefer at least the pilot gets all the main characters' backstory and stuff down. If you like my content, consider subscribing and leaving a like. See you in the next video.